Welcome, dear friends, to part 11 of Exploring the Advent of Divine Justice. And without any further ado, we will have our opening prayer. Thank you.
O thou kind Lord, this gathering is turning to thee. These hearts are radiant with thy love. These minds and spirits are exhilarated by the message of thy glad tidings. O God, let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees, even as it has aspired to material degrees, and render this just government victorious. Confirm this revered nation to upraise the standard of the oneness of humanity, to promulgate the most great peace, to become thereby most glorious and praiseworthy among all the nations of the world. O God, this American nation is worthy of thy favors and is deserving of thy mercy. Make it precious and near to thee through thy bounty and bestowal.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you. All right, let everyone in. Now, let me, first of all, welcome everyone to our class. So happy to have everyone. And if this is the first time joining, really welcome. This is going to be a great journey. Encourage you to come and join us for forthcoming sessions. So now I'm going to go to our part 11. I'm just going to share my screen. And let me full size it. There we go. And I'm going to, there we go, that's better. Okay, so this is our course, Exploring the Advent of Divine Justice, dear friends. So we are on part 11, and this is covering paragraphs 42 through 44. And this is under the umbrella of the rectitude of conduct. And we find these paragraphs when I say find these paragraphs, obviously the paragraphs 42 and 2 through 44, but we find them on page, starting page 22 in this one. And in this one, we find paragraph 42 starting on page 40. Okay, so if you're following along in a book, that's where they are. Okay, so the themes that are covered in these paragraphs, and as I said, it's under the umbrella of rectitude of conduct, this weapon that is being addressed. Because as you remember from our last part, part 10, the topic, the 7 qualities and attributes. Does anyone can name them off the top of their head, the 7 qualities and attributes that define rectitude of conduct?
Trustworthiness.
Trustworthiness, that's one. Who okay,
Justice,
anyone else?
Justice, equity.
Justice, equity, that's 3.
Reliability.
Reliability, I love that. Okay, what else?
Honesty.
Honesty, I love it, Miss Yuda Miller. Okay, there's one missing. Oh, 2 actually, 2 missing. Which one?
Fair-mindedness.
Excellent, Roya John. Fair-mindedness, and there's one last one.
Truthfulness.
We already said truthfulness, Maya-Jan.
I like to repeat it.
It is the foundation of all human virtues. Excellent. Okay, the last one is reliability. Okay, so I repeat them all for all the dear friends. These are the 7, okay, there I'm gonna get my fingers right, 7 qualities. So these are the 7 virtues, okay, that define rectitude of conduct. And interestingly, the beloved guardian puts justice as the first one. So justice, equity, truthfulness, honesty, fair-mindedness, reliability, and trustworthiness. Then, after he has outlaid the entire panorama of what this rectitude of conduct is, then, interestingly, in paragraphs 42 through 44, he really gets into what this justice is. And interestingly, his letter is called Advent of Divine Justice. So he really wants to define what this justice is. So without any further ado, let us now get into reading these paragraphs, okay? So I'm going to call on some readers. Okay, so let us start this off. Dr. Satebayat, you're up first. Go for it.
So great and transcendental is the principle of divine justice, a principle that must be regarded as the crowning distinction of all local and national assemblies in their capacity as forerunners of the universal house of justice, that Baha'u'llah himself subordinates his personal inclination and wish to the all-compelling force of its demands and implications. God is my witness, he thus explains. Were it not contrary to the law of God, I would have kissed the hand of my would-be murderer and would cause him to inherit my earthly goods. I am restrained, however, by the binding law laid down in the book, and am myself bereft of all worldly possessions. Know thou of a truth, he significantly affirms. These great oppressions that have befallen the world are preparing it for the advent of the most great justice. Say, he again asserts, he hath appeared with that justice wherewith mankind has been adorned, and yet the people are, for the most part, asleep. The light of men is justice, he moreover states, quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny.
Excellent reading. Thank you, Dr. Satebayat. Okay. Royajan, carry on paragraph 42, please.
She's muted.
Oh, let me see. Thank you, Dave.
Okay, sorry.
There you are.
The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. No radiance, he declares, can compare with that of justice. The organization of the world and the tranquility of mankind depend upon it. O people of God, he exclaims, that which traineth the world is justice, for it is upheld by two pillars, reward and punishment. These two pillars are the sources of life to the world. Justice and equity is yet another assertion, are two guardians for the protection of man. They have appeared arrayed in their mighty and sacred names to maintain the world in uprightness and protect the nations. Bestir yourselves, O people, in his emphatic warning, in anticipation of the days of divine justice, for the promised hour is now come. Beware lest ye fail to apprehend its import, and be accounted among the erring. The day is approaching, he similarly has written, when the faithful will behold the day star of justice shining in its full splendor from the day spring of glory.
Excellent. Thank you, Royajan.
You're welcome.
Please carry on. Go ahead.
You want me to continue?
Please, Royajan.
Okay.
Thank you.
The shame I was made to bear, he significantly remarks, had uncovered the glory with which the whole of creation had been invested. And through the cruelties I have endured, the day star of justice had manifested itself and shed its splendor upon men. The world, he again has written, is in great turmoil, and the minds of its people are in a state of utter confusion. We entreat the Almighty that he may graciously illuminate them with the glory of his justice and enable them to discover that which will be profitable unto them at all times and under all conditions. And again, there can be no doubt whatever that if the day star of justice, which the clouds of tyranny have obscured, were to shed its light upon men, the face of the earth would be completely transformed.
Excellent. Miss Karen O'Brien, you're up. Go for it.
God be praised. Abdu'l-Baha in his turn exclaims, "The sun of justice hath risen above the horizon of Baha'u'llah. For in his tablets the foundations of such a justice have been laid as no mind hath from the beginning of creation conceived. The canopy of existence," he further explains, "resteth upon the pole of justice and not forgiveness, and the life of mankind dependeth on justice and not on forgiveness."
Excellent. Thank you, Miss Karen. Our last paragraph. Let us go to Miss Gabrielle McGuire all the way in Australia. So good to have you.
Okay. Some wonder, therefore, that the author of the Baha'i Revelation should have chosen to associate the name and the title of that house, which is to be the crown and glory of his administrative institutions, not with forgiveness, but with justice, to have made justice the only basis and the permanent foundation of his most great peace, and to have proclaimed in his hidden words as the best beloved of all things in his sight. It is to the American believers particularly that I feel urged to direct this fervent plea to ponder in their hearts the implications of this moral rectitude and to uphold with heart and soul and uncompromisingly, both individually and collectively, this sublime standard, a standard of which justice is so essential and potent an element.
Excellent. I think that is the end of it. Yes. Very well read, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Miss Gabrielle. So these are the paragraphs 42 through 44. And as mentioned, dear friends, these are covering just one of the 7 qualities of rectitude, of conduct, namely truthfulness. No, it's justice. So really, it's covering justice, okay? And we're defining what justice is. We're exploring this concept and how important it is. And in paragraph 44, it's really now the beloved guardian at the end of it. And I want you to really explore and see this because this is so important. It says it is to the American believers. Miss Gabrielle read this. It says, it is to the American believers, particularly that I feel urged to direct this fervent plea to ponder in their hearts the implications of this moral rectitude and to uphold with heart and soul and uncompromisingly, both individually and collectively, this sublime standard, a standard of which justice is so essential and potent an element. So it's really even focused on the Americans. So let us now start exploring these paragraphs in detail and exploring what is this divine justice that Baha'u'llah, Abdu'l-Baha, the beloved guardian, is really addressing. Okay? So this is the little introduction that I always put out. So let us have a reader. Simin John, would you like to read this, please? You are muted, my dear Simin John. First, you have to unmute.
The beloved guardian expands on justice as one the important qualities of a rectitude of conduct. Shoghi Effendi cites a number of statements from Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha in paragraph 42 and 43 to illustrate the nature of divine justice, referred to by Baha'u'llah as the most great justice, to be established through the revelation of Baha'u'llah.
Excellent. Thank you, Simin John.
Sure.
Now, to all my dear friends who have, as they said, persevered through this course so far, in part 1 of the course, when I was defining what advent of divine justice meant, does anyone remember what divine justice meant at that point? What is the advent of divine justice? Can anyone remember?
Revelation of Baha'u'llah.
Excellent, dear David. So this is dear Dave Kiani. He's also presenting the course in London. So just to introduce him to the class. So he wanted to, it's really late in London right now, so he wanted to sit in, and he's absolutely right.
Demonstrating both behaviors. A weak spiritual reality can result in the dominance of physical reality and its agent, ego, to determine the moral choices we make. If we use our powers to establish love and an authentic relationship with others, then justice prevails.
Okay, I'm going to put, as they say, a disclaimer out. Justice is such a massive topic. Okay, there's so many dimensions to justice, from racial justice to justice for economic justice to women's justice, you name it. There's so many forms of justice. Here we'll be exploring divine justice, okay? So what is divine justice in this sense? And also we'll be exploring injustice. And obviously there are so many forms of injustice that for a presentation like this, I couldn't go into every form of injustice that man has ever done. So I just touch on a few, okay? So don't be like, that's not really covering enough injustice in the world. There are so many types of injustice. That was my disclaimer. Okay, moving on. Miss Yuda Miller, if you could please read.
The justice established through a revelation from God is referred to as divine justice. Divine justice, not forgiveness, is the shelter of the world of existence and the foundation of the life mankind. The American nation was established on an ideal of justice or fairness to all, although in practice, justice has proved a challenging concept to realize.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Yuda. And when it says fairness to all, it is not to all. It was to all that were of the same skin color in that sense. You follow? So it was already in the initial stages unfair. It was injustice when it was even brought into being. But we'll get into that in the forthcoming sections. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Yuda Miller. So let us now get into the little part on injustice. Over the last 10,000 years that humanity has been emerging on this planet, humanity has persistently experienced various injustices, such as slavery, genocide, torture, forced conversions, domination of women. I actually need to change that. It's domination of men by women, not women by men. But probably I wasn't typing right. But it's the domination of men by women. Nations have often directly or subtly abused a particular religious, ethical, or racial minority. The aggression and violation of human rights resulting from these injustices have been woeful and tragic. And this is, as you all know, in fact, today of all days is Holocaust Remembrance Day. You know, how apt is it that we're talking about this? I mean, what an injustice that was. That today marks in 1945 when the Allied forces marched into Auschwitz and liberated that camp. It was the largest of all concentration camps and liberated that camp. So today marks Holocaust Remembrance Day, one of the worst mass genocides this planet has ever had. So we have a hand, Miss Peria, please, you're up.
Hello, Alaupa, Dr. Bayat. Actually, I just wanted to say, I think that you have written it correctly. It is the domination of women by men, that women are being dominated by men.
Oh, yes, you're right.
It is a correct, I just wanted to say, it was not a twist on words. You were accurate.
Domination of women by men. Yes, you're absolutely correct. There you're right. Thank you so much, dear Pariat. Okay, so, and it's very rare that women dominate the men, but in this sense, it is the domination of women
over
by the men. Yeah, you're correct. Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So, and in the bottom slide, the bottom picture, you see these are just instances of genocides from Nanking to Ukraine, the Holocaust, Bosnia, Rwanda, Darfur, Cambodia, Armenia. And every one of them, they say, never again, never again. But they keep happening, right? And it's just that, why are they still and keep happening? Why has humanity not matured? And in the top left picture, you see the injustice of this abuse that men have done to women. And in the top right, and we'll be exploring this in much great detail in forthcoming parts, is the oppression that has gone on of slavery, the oppression against African Americans, the oppression over 400 years of one group over another in this country. And this is, in this picture, you see a slave master whipping an African American here. So they were, and when you say they were slaves, they were not slaves, they were enslaved. You see, to define them as a slave is not correct because they were enslaved peoples. So just moving on, these are forms of injustice and there's so many that I would not be able to get through them all. But how does the beloved Abdul Baha talk about injustice? So this is coming from Foundations of World Unity. And this is what Abdul Baha says. It says, there is no doubt that human nature has the potential to commit good and evil. And there is evidence in history demonstrating both behaviors. His Holiness Abdul Baha's model for human reality clearly describes how the ability to do both good and evil are associated with human nature. Abdul Baha states that there are three realities embedded in man: his physical reality, his intellectual reality, and his spiritual reality. Abdul Baha describes these three realities. Okay, so the first one is this physical reality that we're going to talk about. Man is endowed with an outer or physical reality. It belongs to the material realm, the animal kingdom, because it has sprung from the material world. This animalistic reality of man he shares in common with the animals. Everyone follow? So this is the material, the physical reality. Now we go to the intellectual reality that we all have. Man is endowed with a second reality. This is the rational or intellectual reality. And the intellectual reality of man predominates over nature. All these sciences which we enjoy were the hidden and recondite secrets of nature, unknowable to nature. But man was enabled to discover these mysteries, and out of the plane of this unseen, he brought them into the plane of the seen. So this is on a higher level that even the animal kingdom does not have, is this rational or intellectual reality. Now there's one more reality that we have, and this is the spiritual reality. So the spiritual reality is eternal reality, an indestructible reality, a reality belonging to the divine supernatural kingdom, a reality whereby the world is illumined, a reality which grants unto man eternal life. So the attitudes, the words, and deeds manifested by a human being are dictated by the degrees to which these three realities are developed and the balance between these realities in an individual. So this is how much are you developing your intellectual reality? How much are you exercising your spiritual reality? Remember, we talked about exercise your soul in our last part. So are you exercising your spiritual reality, utilizing it daily? And obviously we have a physical reality. We cannot ignore that, because if we ignore our physical reality, our heart, our physical well-being would go into ill health. So we have to look after our body, because so these are our three realities. And it says that they have to be developed and in balance. So this is from His Holiness Abdu'l-Baha. Any questions? Very straightforward. Any thoughts?
Yes, I have some questions on this topic, man.
Please testify. Good to hear you. Go for it.
Yeah, well, when you see this is a very detailed to me. And when I see it, how can man, make his humility perfect through this all standards of these things that you mentioned? Can one person make his humility perfect according to Abdu'l-Baha's description of all this?
Can one person make himself perfect in humility? Is that your question, dear Tesfa?
Yeah.
That is a lifelong journey. And I don't think we can make ourselves perfect in humility, because Abdu'l-Baha was perfect. So we could work on that, striving every day to bring ourselves more and more in the state of humility, but we'll never reach the level of perfection, for that is Abdu'l-Baha. So, but as to your question, it is every day we have to work on these. And I will give you just two examples of working on humility that His Holiness Baha'u'llah prescribed for us. One of them is obligatory prayer. This is a law in Kitab Aqdas. The law of obligatory prayer is for our own spiritual benefit. It doesn't benefit Baha'u'llah, us doing prayers. It benefits us. That's why he prescribed them for us. So the law of obligatory prayer is for us to bring ourselves in that state of submissiveness, humility, love, coming towards him every day. And that, in that sense, creates that attitude of humility towards our Lord. And I always, when I was young, my mama always used to say that the obligatory prayer is like your doctor's appointment every day. So Every day, the whole world, the dark forces are coming at us. And you have to go to your doctor's appointment every day. Or else what happens? You could start getting sick, right? So that is your appointment every day. Baha'u'llah said you have 3 times that you could do it. The short, the medium, or long. He gives us the option. Very flexible, doctor. So he says you have that option, but you got to do it. And it's for that, creating that spiritual atmosphere within us. The other one is service. So service is our perfect exemplar, Abdul Baha. Service creates humility. Service of mankind creates that attitude of humility. So when you were talking, dear Tesfaye, is how can you reach that level of, perfect, humility? The more that we serve, the more that we give ourselves to humanity and sacrifice, the closer we can get. So that is my examples. And obviously there are more, but for brevity of time, we move on. Okay?
Thank you. Yeah, that's very nice.
Thank you, dear Tesfaye. A weak spiritual reality can result in the dominance of the physical reality and its agent ego to determine the moral choices we make. So remember, we have 3 realities. We have the physical reality, we have the intellectual reality, and the spiritual reality. Just remember these. But it says if you have a weak spiritual reality, what happens? The physical reality is now going to dominate over the spiritual reality. So now, what is the physical reality? It's all the basic things in life, the food, the needs of food and shelter, the basic things, right? So if you don't have the spiritual reality is weak, all the trivial things and material things will now dominate. And this is what this is saying. So now we're going to explore justice and love. So let us have a reader. Dear Pat, you're in the woods. So let us hear you reading for us. Go for it.
Injustice emerges when we seek power to dominate and control others. However, if we use our power to establish love and an authentic relationship with others, then justice prevails. Hence, an authentic application of power results in the establishment of justice. Love is a unique human relationship through which both giver and receiver of love feel good and are satisfied.
This is a topic, love, that more things have been written on it than anything else in the world. Love. It's the force that, as Abdul Baha says, the atoms are joined and connected by love. It is the most powerful force in the universe, is love. Love is a unique human relationship through which both giver and receiver of love feel good and are satisfied, if done right. And it is veritable. It is a true form of love. There's no expectations of, I want something out of it, if it is a true love. If it is, it says, hence an authentic application. So it has to be real, veritable. So, any thoughts? I hear, I think that's Tesfaye is saying something. If anyone else has any thoughts?
You know what I observe is when you come to love, from the all manifestations of God, from the very beginning up to the revelations of Baha'u'llah, every time everything changes, laws and other things, but love will never change.
That's very true.
It keeps continuing and it will continue again. And love is to be, because it identifies our Creator himself. That's the way I understand.
Excellent, excellent. Very true, dear Tesfaye. This entire revelation, and when I'm talking about revelation, I'm talking about all the manifestations, is an expression of the love of our Lord. This is the faith of God. It is just an expression of his love for us. And the more that you study this unfolding faith, you will see how much he loves us. You will see how much he cares for us. And this is all just one expression of love after another.
Yes, and John, may I add a comment here?
Please, Dr. Bayat, go for it.
It's of course true that love has been the substance of all faith, all revelations. But what has happened is that the basis or the foundation for love has expanded substantially.
Yes.
For example, love thy neighbor still stands, but the meaning of neighbor has changed and is increased. At one time, it meant literally your neighbor. Then it meant your fellow people in the same town or the tribe or the fellow countrymen. And now is mankind. So the foundation and the basis of love has expanded progressively through revelations, but the subject of love remains the same. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Bayat. Okay, moving along. Now here, this is from selections from the writings of Abdul Baha. And this is where His Holiness Abdul Baha describes love. And this would have been really nice if it was coming up in Valentine's Day, but we're getting it a little early, right? So Abdul Baha describes love as the secret of God's holy dispensation, the manifestation of the all-merciful, the fountain of spiritual outpourings, heaven's kindly light, the Holy Spirit's eternal breath that vivifieth the human soul, the cause of God's revelation unto man, the vital bond inherent in accordance with the divine creation in the realities of things, the one means that ensureth true felicity both in this world and the next, the light that guideth in darkness, the living link that uniteth God with man, that assureth the progress of every illumined soul. The most great law that ruleth this mighty and heavenly cycle, the unique power that bindeth together the diverse elements of this material world, the supreme magnetic force that directeth the movements of the spheres in the celestial realms, revealeth with unfailing and limitless power the mysteries latent in the universe, the spirit of life unto the adorned body of mankind, the establisher of a true civilization in this mortal world, and the shedder of imperishable glory upon every high-aiming race and nation. So beautiful, so many amazing imagery. This one that really, I don't know about any of my dear friends here, but the one that just jumps out at me and, is this imagery of this supreme magnetic force. I love it. It's such an incredible description of what love is. Supreme magnetic force that directeth the movements of the spheres in the celestial realms, that everything in the cosmos, from the tiniest of things to everything, is based upon love. It's so beautiful. I mean, you think these great Shakespeares or people have anything on understanding of love. This is Abdul Baha. This is incredible, his description of love.
When you are talking about Shakespeare, you remind me something from the Shakespeare's writings that he say about love. He said that one of the most important thing in this world is to love someone. And the second most important thing is to be loved by someone. and the third most important thing is to get the first two happenings at the same time.
Very good, dear Tesla. Thank you. So moving on. So this is how Abdul Baha describes love, okay? And why is we're talking about love? Because it has all the ties to justice. If we love humanity, if we care about humanity, if we care about everyone, we will want justice. And this is a quote, it says, "And if thine eyes be turned towards justice, choose thou for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself." This is from Baha'u'llah. Remember, we are lovers of humanity. Love. So justice and love go hand in hand. And let us have a reader. I'm just going to pick, oh, sorry, my chubby finger. Let's just have a reader. Hoda John, you're up.
Justice must be sacred, and the rights of all people must be considered. Abdul-Baha.
I love this quote. I love this quote, and I love this quote because as a Baha'i, this is the definition of what a Baha'i is again. Remember? Promoter of justice, promoter and lover of all humanity. So justice must be sacred. Sacred. Sacred comes from sacre. It means it is valued. It's of holiness. It is holy. And rights of all people must be considered. And we're going to get into injustices coming up in part 14, the discrimination of the African Americans. We're going to be getting into that because we're talking about freedom from prejudices as one of the weapons. So we're going to be getting into this much coming up, and I look forward to presenting that to the class. This is from Baha'u'llah. Let us have Azim John read this one. Go for it, Azim John.
There is not and hath never been a host more mighty than that of justice and wisdom. Baha'u'llah.
Justice is one of the most addressed topics in all the writings of Baha'u'llah, Abdul-Baha, as well as the beloved guardian. But it's also a very hard topic to do a compilation on because there's a thing called the Universal House of Justice, right? So doing a compilation on it, you start finding other things. And so, but I actually did one and I will send that to the class. So then you will start to see this theme of what justice is. And you get a clear understanding of what this best beloved of all things in my sight is. What is justice? What does Baha'u'llah say it is? So this is divine justice. Now we're getting into it. So let us hear from Riaz John. You're up.
Divine justice. Justice has a lofty rank in the Baha'i teachings to the extent that His Holiness Baha'u'llah refers to it in the hidden words as the best beloved of all things in His sight. He counsels His followers, turn not away therefrom if thou desirest me, and neglect it not, that I may confide in thee. By its aid thou shalt see with thine own eyes, and not through the eyes of others, and shalt know of thine own knowledge, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Ponder this in thy heart, how it behoveth thee to be. Verily, justice is my gift to thee, and the sign of my loving kindness. Set it then before thine eyes. The justice established through a revelation from God is referred to in the Baha'i writings as divine justice. And on the side, we have divine justice. The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice turn not away therefrom, if thou desirest me.
Excellent, Rilshan. Thank you so much. Very well read.
Can I say something?
Please, Hodajan.
Yes. I think this quote from Baha'u'llah, and it's in Arabic, original, it requires, in order, first of all, he says, turn not away therefrom, because we do turn away from it. Because it's uncomfortable to see others that are not doing as well, have the same opportunity that we have. And then he says, neglect it not, that I may confide in thee. Because if we do neglect it, he's not going to confide. God is not going to let us know with his, through his own eyes. And then with the aid of justice, we can see with our own eyes and not through the others. When I came here as an immigrant to America, I immediately was told, kind of through every way, shape and form, there's two Americas, one white, one black, separate, unequal, and hostile. That there was just, you know, that I had to make a choice, which side I want to be in. Whether I would believe a narrative of anti-Blackness and participate in that, or whether I would stand as a justice warrior and try and figure how I can bring both sides together as a Baha'i, rather than choose one side over the other because it was more comfortable or convenient, or I was going to do better and I was going to win physical brownie points, rather than do what Baha'u'llah tells me is the best beloved in his sight.
Thank you. Thank you, Hodajan. Yes, it is uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable, as Hodajan mentioned, where he says, turn not away therefrom. Looking at the injustices in the world, it's not an easy thing. And so, and it says, neglect it not. So you have to address these injustices. We have to be aware of the injustices in the world. And
you know, it's the way I understand it.
Yes, DJ.
As you mentioned it earlier, that justice and love is to be binding together. So if someone loves you, then they will give you a true justice. If they don't love you, then that's why they turn and neglect you, because that is creating injustice. That's what it happened most of the time, if you see that. But you know, when you go to Bible, even Jesus Christ, in the early age, he said that if you don't love man, don't say that I love you. The word not come out from your mouth until it comes from your heart deeply. By saying from the mouth it's not to be that much acceptable unless it's to come from the heart. So that's why we see now most of the time the world is to be injustice and too much a problem. So all what they are talking is not come from the heart.
Thank you, dear Tesfaye. You're spot on. I mean, if it's a veritable love, true love, they will strive for justice and equity. You're absolutely right, dear Tesfaye. Okay, moving on, dear friends. Okay, let us have James read, and welcome.
Thank you. His Holiness Baha'u'llah refers to the manifestations of God as the manifestations of divine justice. Divine justice represents the will of God for a particular age revealed to humanity through the laws, ordinances, and teachings of a new religion destined for a particular period of human history. Through divine justice, an authentic relationship is established between people through love and upholding the standards of justice through the enforcement of divine laws.
Excellent. Very well read, James. So the manifestations of God are these manifestations of divine justice. So they have the standard of what divine justice is. And it's through their laws that they bring, their ordinances and teachings, they are bringing about this justice to the world, the standard of justice through the enforcement of their divine laws. Okay, so, and we have this quote, I will read this. It says, "The light of men is justice. Quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men." So in this imagery, it says, the light of men is justice. It says, quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. The purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. When I was reading this quote the first time, I was thinking of a candle, you know, and this candle being a flame is justice. You know, we see the torchbearer of, in the Statue of Liberty, she's holding a torch. And that is the light of men is justice. And it says, it says, quench it not with the contrary winds of oppression and tyranny. So we should be very careful not to put out this flame of justice.
My son.
Yes, dear Tesfai.
Yeah, in this quotation, you know, what you have to highlight over here is, you know, the purpose of justice is to be the appearance of unity among men. And love is also the same thing. It brings unity among men. That's why our creators, every time we do a lot of mistakes and so many things going on in the world, but still he's appearing and sending his messenger of God, showing his unconditional love. That's so right. That love and the justice are, you can't separate them.
That's right, absolutely. That's right. So these are inseparable. And so let us now go to exploring paragraphs 42 and 43. So Miss Deanie Jensen, you're up, go for it. You're muted, Miss Deanie. Almost. There you go.
In paragraphs 42 and 43, Shoghi Effendi cites a number of statements from Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha to illustrate the nature of divine justice, referred to by Baha'u'llah as the most great justice, to be established through the revelation of Baha'u'llah. We share with you some major points raised in these quotations. Divine justice, not forgiveness, is the shelter of the world of existence and the foundation of the life of mankind. The great oppression experienced by humanity is preparing it for the coming of the most great justice through the revelation of Baha'u'llah. The purpose of justice is to create unity and to establish tranquility. Reward and punishment are the two pillars of justice. Divine justice and equity are the two guardians protecting humanity. Divine justice was manifested as a result of the shame and cruelties inflicted on Baha'u'llah. Divine justice illuminates humanity and clears the confusions in the minds of people. The face of the earth will be completely transformed through divine justice. The foundations of divine justice have been laid in the tablets of Baha'u'llah.
Excellent, and thank you, Ms. Deanie. So these are the key points are in the quotes from Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, dear Holajan, please.
I really would like to know. I have two questions regarding not questions, but if somebody could expand on it. Reward and punishment are the two pillars of justice, is one concept. And the second one, divine justice and equity are the two guardians protecting humanity. What's the difference between justice and equity?
Oh, very good. So that was in part 10, dear Hodajan. So we explored that concept on justice and equity. Does anyone remember the difference between justice and equity in our last section? Anybody would like to give it a shot?
These are the twin of them. They can't separate them. Justice and equities, they go hand in hand.
That's correct, dear Tesfaye. They do go hand in hand. So equity has a broad meaning. It refers to a range of values, such as fairness. It also has has implications of justice, impartiality, and particularly in the way people are treated. Okay, so that is equity. Justice, in this light, I will explore that one too and explain that. Let me explain justice. One second, I have all my definitions here in front of me. I just want to make sure I cover that correctly. Justice, as Baha'u'llah has defined it, and I say I don't want to use my own words, I want to use it from the writings. Baha'u'llah defines justice as it is one of the standards of what defines. Dr. Bayat, I'm going to go to you on this, okay? Because I have several things I want to say, but I just want to make sure that I'm defining these things accurately and correctly. Do you have anything you would like to say on equity and justice, Dr. Bayat?
Those are hard for me to comment unless I work on it and come up with the precise definitions. However, I would like to comment on reward and punishment, which was referred to earlier on.
Right.
Historically, mankind were told by various religions as well as various customs and traditions that if you do wrong, you will suffer the consequences. And that was where laws were in. And for example, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and so on. So religions as well as customs and traditions came to put reward and punishment as two pillars of justice. And it was taken to be very literal. It is on that basis that the concept of heaven and hell in religions in the past were created, so graphically describing the rewards of heaven and the punishments of hell. In fact, it's incredible to read those. In the Baha'i writings, it has turned for the afterlife more into a reward or punishment which is of a spiritual nature, because we don't recognize a physical hell and physical heaven. And therefore, the punishment turns to the disappointment and sadness that the soul of man finds himself or herself in after passing through this world, recognizing all the misdeeds and all the problems and all the unlawful things that it's done. And heaven is the happiness and joy that comes with having done the right things and having the grace and the joy of our Heavenly Father with us, okay? But nevertheless, in this world, the reward and punishment are left very much to the courts and to the justice system. But Baha'u'llah in the Kitab Aqdas states that when we do something wrong, apart from what law dictates here, there will be spiritual consequences for us in the next world. That's all I wanted to comment on reward and punishment. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Say
Dr. Bhatt.
something, Asa?
Pat's had his hand up first, and I come to you, Dr. Satyabayat. Thank you so much.
Okay, look.
Okay, Pat, you're up.
Just a quick observation on the question between justice and equity. This may be too broad, but simply put, that justice, divine justice, that is the standard. Those are the laws. Equity seems to me is the application. It is with the measure of fairness. It is the equal application of the law rather than, as we have seen in practice, through prejudice or corruption, laws can be very selectively applied. Because justice and the laws can be clear for everyone to see. But if there's no trust that the laws are going to be accurately and appropriately applied, then there's no confidence that there is justice, in fact. That's all.
Excellent comment. Thank you, dear Pat. And Dr. Satyabayat, you're up.
Yes, it's Pat said it all. It's equity is the practice of justice and fairness. You know, it's a system. Justice is a system, but equity is putting this system into practice with fairness. So the three of them are so intertwined, you know, but equity, to be equitable means to practice equity, means to practice the justice that we are talking about. Otherwise, it's just a beautiful statement to have justice. But equity is how to put it into practice. This is what we are all talking about.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Satyabayat. We're really getting into the heart, understanding these concepts better. And we have Keva John has a hand. Go for it, Keva John.
I'll make it quick. I think when we talk about justice, this is all about relationships. And I think the equity part has to do with the business side of it. As they said, when we put it in practice.
Mm-hmm. It's the application of how to put justice into exactly. Okay, very good. That was a fantastic. Okay, and James, you have a hand, please.
Yeah, I have a question relating to the last few bullet points on this page, and that is divine justice, as defined here, is that new with the revelation of Baha'u'llah? Has the world experienced it before?
As divine justice defined here, are you saying, is that new?
Yes.
Yes.
As divine justice is through the revelation of Baha'u'llah, that is, all the revelations are divine justice. All of them at that point, at that time, is divine justice. But the face of the earth will be completely transformed through divine justice. And this is the advent of divine justice, meaning this is another revelation. This is a period of twin revelations. So this is the face of the whole earth will be transformed through divine justice. So this is the advent of the manifestations of God, who come and are authors of divine justice. And then, please, someone, is that your testify?
I know, it was me again.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, James, go for it.
I was saying, is this the first time in which humanity has had a kind of a world order that is based upon divine justice?
Great question, James. And the answer is yes. And because prior, we've never had such a thing as a world, you know? It was prior to this dispensation of the Bab and Baha'u'llah, it was nation state. It was, Islam. And prior to that, it was Christianity. And that was more of even nation states or, tribal in that sense, And then even prior to that, there were different from the warring kingdoms and, different areas all around the world. But as to your question, yes, this is the first time in the world's history we could say, yes, this is the world order of, so this is the whole planet will, is being called to this level of divine justice. So great questions, James, great questions. So we have another hand. Paria has a hand, please, you're up.
Yes, I just wanted to also share what James was asking about divine justice. Your previous slide also beautifully shared that His Holiness Baha'u'llah refers to the manifestations of God as the manifestations of divine justice. So I think the concept of divine justice was brought to the world in every era and dispensation of the manifestations, but in their own way they practiced justice in the era that they were provided. And that in this day of Baha'u'llah, the true justice will have to come from the world order of Baha'u'llah. And that what we may have perceived justice at the time of Moses would not be perceived as justice as today. But at that time, it did elevate the justice of humanity and was given through divine justice, those laws and ordinances. So I just wanted to share that because I just remembered the slide that you shared. And I wanted to add, if it's possible, Sanjan, about the question of equity.
Please.
This concept of inequality and equity is such an important one, because we speak about inequality, equity, inequities, and these are very, they sound very similar in understanding, but they're very different in application, because when we think of inequality that exists today, if we were to think of it as a tree, and one side of this tree was bent towards you, Sanjan, and away from me, this is inequality, because you will have a greater access to the fruits of the tree, and I will have a more difficult access to the fruits of those trees because they're bent away from me. Equality would mean that if I were to make this opportunity of reaching the fruits of that tree equal, that I would have to provide the tools. But even if I were to provide the same tool to you and the same tool to me, and if my ladder does not still reach high enough, you still get greater access to all the fruits and higher, and I still don't get access, even though equality in tool and application is given to both of us, because the opportunity of the tree is still away from me. Equity would mean that not only would I get the proper tool to reach the same branches of the tree that you are reaching, and that's where inequities are powerful. So equality doesn't answer the question of inequity. Inequity means that I get a different tool than you get because I am further away from the fruits of that tree and the opportunities afforded to me. And so this distinction of equality and equity is so important. And justice would mean that neither the tree would be on your side or my side. It would be straight and narrow, would be great, and every fruit and every opportunity of the branches of that tree would be available to both you and I, and the tools would be equal, the opportunities would be equitable. And this I think was a great question that Hodejan brought up, because I think the distinction between equality and inequities are so important. I hope that made sense. I just wanted to share that.
Excellent points. Thank you, dear Paria. Thank you. Let us go to dear James. You're up.
I was just going to say that one of the things that drove the question about divine justice is that if personally I look at the justice system anywhere in the world and imagine the roots of it, I don't think love exists anywhere within the system or was a motivational factor behind the system. And yet for us, love is at the very heart of justice.
You're spot on. Love, I don't think, was anywhere in the forming of justice systems, sadly, and you're absolutely right. Okay, what a wonderful myriad of questions and what a great insights we've gotten coming from these dialogue. Let us move on. So this is one of the quotes that we find in this extract in paragraph 43. Let us have a reader of this. How about, let us have Dennis McGregor. So good to see you. Let us have you read.
Sure. The canopy of existence rested upon the pole of justice and not of forgiveness.
That's right. The canopy of existence resteth upon the poles of justice and not of forgiveness. And then later on, the beloved guardian says, the example is the men of justice, the house of justice, and not of the house of forgiveness. And so that was the example. We're going to see that coming up. This is another quote. He says, that which traineth the world is justice, for it is upheld by two pillars, reward and punishment. These two pillars are the sources of life to the world. This is from Baha'u'llah. And this is a concept, reward and punishment, that, as I have said in my earlier disclaimer, these are concepts that are so massive that I cannot do justice. I cannot do justice to these topics in this section by just focusing on. I could do a whole section, a whole slide on just the pillars of reward and punishment, but it would take quite a bit of time.
Listen, may I just add a comment here?
Please, Dr. Bayat.
If you think of punishment as education and training,
yes,
it becomes much easier to follow these passages. On the one side, for everything good we do, there is a reward. And if you don't, we need to be trained and educated and brought into line. And that is for our own good. And when you think about it this way, it's much easier to follow the concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bayat. So in order to highlight the significance of justice and distinguish it from forgiveness as the foundation of the new world order, the beloved guardian mentions in paragraph 44 that the crowning institution of the Baha'i administrative order is referred by Baha'u'llah as the house of justice, not the house of forgiveness. So this is so amazing and important as he is defining his supreme institution, as the crowning institution of the Baha'i administrative order, as the house of justice. So this is where he places justice, the importance of it. So now these are, as we just had Martin Luther King Day, and he has so many beautiful quotes. I'm sharing just some of my favorite extracts that he has on justice. So this is Martin Luther King Jr. He says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And this is the standard. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So beautiful. This is another one of my favorite quotes from dear Dr. King. He says, true peace is not merely the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice. We should memorize these quotes. These are so beautiful. And you know how wonderful it is to be able to quote Dr. Martin Luther King. True peace is not merely the absence of tension. It is the presence of justice. This is an awesome quote. I'm going to get someone to read this because it is such an awesome quote. Okay, so let us have David, you there? Go for it, David.
Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. The tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals.
So powerful. Now think about the author of this, Martin Luther King Jr., giving this talk. Human progress Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. How much did he persevere to bring about civil rights, his struggle for human rights for African Americans in this country? It is neither automatic nor inevitable. Are you a dedicated individual towards the promotion of the oneness of humanity? Are you dedicated? Are you tirelessly exerting yourself, passionately concerned for the well-being of all humanity? And that's how it comes about. It's neither inevitable nor automatic. You have to sacrifice, you have to suffer, and we have to struggle to make the justice happen. This is from Martin Luther King Jr. This I think is my last quote I have here from Martin Luther King Jr. Let us have another quote, reader. Miss Darla Brown, you're up. Miss Darla, you with us? Go for it.
I am.
There you go.
Okay. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Martin Luther King.
I love this quote too. I mean, how many beautiful, as they say, quotables does Martin Luther King Jr. have? This is such a beautiful, we are connected all together in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We are one humanity, intrinsically connected. So injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We should feel it. It should affect us immediately if there's any form of injustice anywhere, because it is injustice against you. It is injustice against me. Because we are one humanity. This is from His Holiness Abdul Baha. He says, justice must be sacred, and the rights of all the people must be considered. Desire for others only that which you desire for yourself. So if you desire something just for yourself, you have to have that for all humanity, because justice is sacred and the rights of all must be considered. And the problem of all this injustice is because humanity has not been considering others' rights. It has not been doing this. This is from His Holiness Baha'u'llah. Miss Judy, you're up. Miss Judy Silcock, you go for it.
Okay. No light can compare with the light of justice, the establishment of order in the world, and the tranquility of the nations depend upon it. Baha'u'llah.
So we're just getting a feeling of the importance of just one of these 7 attributes of this rectitude of conduct, justice. How important it is. It says the tranquility of the nations depend upon it. Justice. No light can compare with the light of justice. Think about the order of society, the court system. If it was unjust, think about how unjust it has to be any one of these minority groups in this country. Injustice, how much suffering they've suffered because of injustice.
Can I say something? I love these quotes. And Baha'u'llah says, it is important to translate that which is written into reality.
Please.
So time as you're reading these quotes, I'm thinking, what can we do as an individual, as a community, or as institutions what can we start doing, stop doing, or continue doing?
Right.
Because just reading these quotes, I kind of feel paralyzed with the knowing all the injustices and knowing what is God's will and what we should do. But I can't think of like concrete things that I individually can do or I can do in the community or the Baha'i institutions or societal institutions can do. So, I mean, I think it's good to have that in the, in the side of them. Just thinking about those practical, concrete, tangible things we can do to promote justice.
Excellent, excellent. I love it, dear Hodajan. Yes, when we are our meetings, our gatherings, are we treating everyone equitably, fairly, lovingly? And as dear Tesfaye mentioned, love and justice go hand in hand. In the sense of love. If we truly love everyone, truly with that sense of burning love, are we treating everyone equitably, giving them the same rights, the same respect, the same kindness? Are we? If it's in our jobs, in our place of hire, are we treating everyone equitably? Are we treating everyone, if it's our business dealings, are we being equitable in how we handle our affairs? And so these are where we bring ourselves to account, in the sense of these qualities, these attributes. Reflect on, what does this mean? What does justice mean in my life? Am I practicing my life as with justice? Because here it says the tranquility of the nations depend upon it. It's not just the courts are the only practices of justice. We should practice justice. We should really meditate on, what does justice mean in my own internal life? And then when we start meditating upon it, we will start understanding this concept, and we'll see that maybe, hey, I haven't been treating everybody with justice. Maybe I have been practicing a degree of prejudice, because prejudice is not treating everyone equitably, So equity is so fairness, because you put one above another. You see, if you put one above another, that's not justice. Justice is everyone having the same love, the same opportunities, the same respect, the same. But if you put one above another, that's called prejudice, right? So we have to reflect on these, meditate on these, search our own hearts, okay? Thank you for dear Hodajan. These are things that we have to bring ourselves to account.
Yes, Sanjay, if I have a short minute.
You have 1 minute, dear Dr. Bayat.
Every one of us are members of many families, work environment, society, business societies, clubs, and so on. And to emphasize the significance of things that any one of us do in the conduct of our daily interaction with others, and see how significant it is, although we don't see it. The analogy is, if you drop a small stone into water, you see series of circles created and moving away from that point that the stone dropped. But next time when it rains, and if you happen to be close to a calm water, you can see literally hundreds and hundreds of these circles are created, and they go all over. Therefore, if as individuals we do what is right, and many of us do that, the impact of that is phenomenal, although we ourselves may not be aware of it. And that's how the society's behavior change, because all these circles are affecting one another. That expression that wings of a butterfly in China could create a storm somewhere else, it's very true. when the little efforts of everyone around the world brings about the change of attitudes. Thank you.
Excellent points, Dr. Bayat. Thank you so much. And this is from Baha'u'llah, and it says, "And if thine eyes be turned towards justice, choose thou for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself." Are our eyes turned towards justice, or are our eyes turned towards just what we want? You know, are our eyes turned towards justice? Keep that justice in front of your eyes. And so that is the standard, what Baha'u'llah is saying. Keep justice in front of your eyes. And as we read earlier, this is the Arabic hidden words. It says, "The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. By its aid thou shalt see with thine own eyes and not through the eyes of others, and shalt know of thine own knowledge and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor." Got a few more slides, but we're almost at the end of our, we'll just do this one more slide and then we'll close it for today. Toward the end of paragraph 44, the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi urges the American Baha'i community, collectively and individually, to uphold with their hearts and souls this standard of moral rectitude, of which justice is so essential and potent an element. This great emphasis given by the beloved guardian Shoghi Effendi to the issue of justice in the advent of divine justice is not surprising in light of the injustices embedded in many aspects of American society. This is despite the focus of American political thought on justice ever since the founding of the nation. And this slide, it says, justice is the ideal on which the American nation was established and has been the driving force behind political thoughts and concepts. But unfortunately, achieving justice in practice has proved very challenging due to the prevalence of prejudices, corruption, and violence in American society. The legal system is harsh towards the poor and lenient towards the rich. White-collar criminals receive mild sentences for serious offenses, whilst the poor are severely punished for minor wrongdoings. And I could have gone into much more greater detail on different forms of injustices in America, but I just touched on it there. But as I mentioned earlier, prejudice is where you put one over another, and that is injustice. And this is a video. I just want, this will be our closing video, so you can remember this point of justice.
The founder of the Baha'i Faith, Baha'u'llah, expressed justice as a foundational principle for human society and for the advancement of civilization. And he said the purpose of justice is the appearance of unity among men. So we have this vision of unity, of the oneness of humanity, but it's impossible to have unity unless it's on a basis of justice. And if you read the Baha'i writings, justice is referred in a twofold way. In one way, it's a social principle. It's about justice in human affairs, in governance, in representation. But at a deeper level, as a spiritual quality, justice is a faculty of the human soul. Justice is a way that you discern truth. And Baha'u'llah says, by its aid, you shall see with your own eyes and not through the eyes of others. And you will know by your own knowledge and not through the knowledge of your neighbor. So it's the ability of each soul to look at things and be truthful and state things as they are and not be swayed by prejudices. And I think that as a spiritual quality, that's the foundation where justice begins in interhuman, interpersonal relations. and then gradually in the relations between communities and institutions, and all the way up to the global level.
All right. Very good, dear friends. We're at our closing time.
Everything is great, what we hear and what we talk. But the most important thing is, you know, it needs our maturity how to apply all these things.
Exactly, dear Tesfaye.
So our spiritual degree is to be the determination of all these applications. But there is so much knowledge come to our brain, and then we don't know how to apply it unless and otherwise we become mature.
This letter, Advent of Divine Justice, is a manual for action. So this is not, you know, everything that we're presenting to you. Wonderful quotes, wonderful writings, and beautiful pictures, but everything is for you to reflect in your inner life of how am I going to not only transform yourself, but you then work on your family, then work on your community, then work. This is how we start slowly transforming, but it is a manual for action. Excellent. Dear Judy has a hand, please.
Yes, I have a question. And of course, it just went out of my brain. Just a minute. Oh, darn. I don't know. It was brilliant, too, of course.
It was an amazing question. Yes,
it was an amazing question and just left. That's funny. Okay, well, if it comes back to me, I'll let you know.
Anyone else?
The most important thing is we try to do our best, and the perfection is to Him. We leave the perfection to Him.
That's right, dear Tesfaye. We're going back to Judy because she just
remembered. Now I remember. I have an ebook because I don't have my library around me anymore. So, but I can't seem to find where you are in the ebook. Do you have any suggestions?
Ooh, okay. I'll send it to you. Okay.
Okay.
I'll send it to you. Okay. We are paragraphs 42 through 44.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll tell you the exact quotes so you'll follow along on that too. Okay.
Okay. Well, you don't have my email address, so I don't think you can do that.
Okay.
Is there? There's no chat here, so
there is a chat. Yeah, there is a chat.
Oh.
Let me see. I'll put it in the chat so everyone can see this is my email address. Okay.
Oh, yes.
So if you want to send anything to me, don't hesitate. That is my email address, and you can communicate to me directly on that. Okay. Yes. Excellent. Dear friends, what a lovely night discussing the subject and theme of justice. Next week, we will finish this theme of justice, and then we are going to start our first section on chaste and holy life, which is going to be quite fascinating. And I'm sure many of you have not studied this subject in many years, but it's going to be very interesting. And then we're going to, and then the following section is also exploring chaste and holy life in even more depth. So really, what a pleasure having you tonight. And without any further ado, let us have a closing prayer, then we can all say good night to each other.
I can say one for teaching.
Please, Siminjat. Thank you so much.
O God, my God, aid thou thy trusted servants to have loving and tender hearts. Help them to spread amongst all the nations of the earth the light of guidance that cometh from the company on high. Verily, thou art the strong, the powerful, the mighty, the all-subduing, the ever-giving. Verily, thou art the generous, the gentle, the tender, the most bountiful.
Thank you so much, everyone. Wishing you the best. Wonderful week. Stay healthy, stay strong. Look forward to seeing you all next week.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, John.
Hello,
everyone.
Thank you, Son John. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjan. It was wonderful.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you.